I'm muted. You're the one? All right.
I am.
Good.
And we are recording, so we can get started.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. This is Thursday, June the 8th, 2023. We are meeting for our Indigent Defense Commission meeting. And of course, there's a home base at the Utah Office of Indigent Defense Services, but virtual meeting. So let's first do the welcome and introductions. And we have one of our big meetings with all of the discussion of grant applications today. So let's see, let's start with, we have our staff, Katrina Adair, and our executive director, Matthew Barraza, Adam Troop staff, Leslie, good thing I remember your name because it just says Indigent Defense Commission. Thank you, Leslie. Katie, tell us who you are.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet you. I'm currently the intern at the IDC, so Matthew thought it would be good for me to hop on here and listen to what's going on.
Fantastic. Yeah, great idea. Thank you. Welcome. Let's see, we have Amber, who's IDC staff, and all the others are commissioners. And so for I'm going to first introduce Casey Hopes a little bit, and then when the rest of you all introduce yourselves next, say a tiny bit, at least for Casey's sake, about which discipline in the law you represent for this commission, and where you are, like your name, and then where you work. That would be, I think, helpful. So Casey, everyone I just mentioned are staff in the office and do really great work. And then, I'll have Casey say something about himself, but first I can say that, of course, I know Casey because he's a fellow commissioner in all of these counties and in part of the Utah Association of Counties. He comes from Emery County. He's well respected by his peers of commissioners and council members. He was nominated for a position that he was a little reluctant to commit to, but nonetheless, it's a leadership position within the Utah Association of Counties. And so, well respected by his peers. And Casey, I personally am so thankful that you were open to serving on this commission and that you've gone through the process. It's a little bit of a long process, right? To submit and then to wait for the Senate confirmation, but here you are, just in time to be an expert for grants. So what else would you like to say, Casey?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I look forward. I know Carbon County has had the opportunity to work with the IDC for several years now. We've been the recipient of some grants, and I was able to work with Adam Troop at the Utah Association of Counties when he was there. So I look towards him as a friend and somebody that will help. And Matthew and everybody. Matthew actually called me earlier this week and was able to, or was it this week or last week? Last week. And give me some references and some stuff to look at to be able to help me understand a little better what the process is and what we do. Outside of that, there are blessings for not getting elected to certain positions at UAC.
Yes, there are. Sometimes most of us are a little reluctant, right, to have to put in extra time, but yeah, but nonetheless, you still were willing. So. Yeah, that's a great intro. And Carbon, another beautiful rural county in Utah. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll finish with the other commissioners so you can know who they are a little bit better. Margaret, you want to start? There we go.
There we go. It's just reviewing the statement while I was doing it. Casey, welcome. I'm Margaret Lindsay. I am from the Utah County Public Defender Association, and my position on the commission relates mostly to child welfare matters in juvenile court. But my areas of responsibility in the office are juvenile court as a whole, including delinquency, as well as some appeals management.
Thank you. Michael Drexel.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Casey. Nice to meet you. I like Carbon County. I think Price could be a city I could live in. I used to live in Vernal for about 15 years, and it's similar in a lot of ways. I was a prosecutor for about 9 years. I was a defense attorney for about 3 years, doing both criminal defense and parental defense in child welfare cases in juvenile court. For the last 5 years, though, I've worked at the administrative office of the courts, which is the kind of administrative component of running the judiciary. And in that role, I serve as the liaison for the executive and legislative branches. So during the session, I'm up at the Capitol and privileged to meet with this fine group on indigent defense issues. So it's nice to meet you.
Thanks, Michael. Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Vickery. I'm the Director of Utah Juvenile Defender Attorneys. My office represents kids who are going to juvenile court with delinquency offenses in Salt Lake County. We also do a lot of training stuff with the IDC and things like that. And my role, like Margaret's, is for juvenile, but my focus is delinquency matters.
Great. Wally.
How do you do? Nice to meet you. Welcome. Hope you have a good experience. My name is Wally Bugden. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've practiced for a long time, 46 years. I've never been a prosecutor, only been a defense attorney, and I represent the defense bar, part of those. And because Pam is so modest, she didn't tell you that she is a superstar, and has a great rapport when she makes presentations to the legislature, and she is a very effective communicator.
Yeah. I keep running her into her in the Capitol. Now you're going to see people that you've been seeing, Casey. You just didn't know who they were. She's there.
And she just won an award, right? What was the name of the award, Pam?
Criminal Justice Advocate of the Year, I think is what it was, from the College of Social Work at the U.
Oh, nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I was very honored. It's Justice Zimmerman will know this, but it's called the Russ Van Vliet Award. So he's kind of a legend in the juvenile court. So I was very honored.
That's wonderful. Oh, that's really great to hear. Okay, Michael Zimmerman.
Hi, it's nice to meet you, Casey. Welcome to Carbon County, or from Carbon County. I'm a former justice of the Utah Supreme Court. I was Chief Justice for 4 years. I have retired from the court in 2000. And I'm an appellate lawyer now, and I do a lot of arbitrations. And I'm just a former judicial officer who's on the commission. There's a slot for that, and that's the slot I fill. I also sit on CCJJ as a delegate from the IDC. So I'm help watch over legislation.
Oh, that's nice. I didn't know that, Michael. Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Oh, good. Okay, now the two of you that we can't see yet, hopefully we can hear you. Let's go with Mary. Mary, yeah, share your whole name too, because it just says Mary's iPad, but that's not your name.
Mary Corporon. I am a commissioner. I believe I am connected with this because of my connection to or appointment by the Utah Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and I am an attorney in private defense practice for 43 years now.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Mary. And last but not least, Rich.
Hey, welcome, Casey. My name is Rich Morrow. I'm the executive director of the Salt Lake Legal Defender Association, which is the adult public defender office in Salt Lake City. You know, our office on a yearly basis handles somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 felony cases a year, and probably another 6,000 or 7,000 misdemeanors. Plus we do appeals, and they're mostly in adult cases. We sometimes work in conjunction with Pam's office on serious youth offender cases and other juveniles that may be charged, that the DA may want to transfer to adult court or direct file against.
Yeah, they're busy. When we did the strategic planning about a year ago, we met in your area there, right? Ridge, that was in those offices, yeah, which was really great that you let us be there. So it gives me kind of a visual now when you talk about all your big giant team, and that's a lot of felonies, wow. Okay, good, thank you, everyone, super helpful. So now I'll let Matt, our executive director, go ahead and kick off the fiscal year 24 grant application presentations.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for reviewing the applications that we sent out. And before I start the presentation, I just want to give a special thanks to Katrina and Leslie for all the work that they've done to help prepare for this. You probably don't know, but we are short-staffed right now. We had to part ways with the person who was doing our financial analyst job. And so Leslie and Katrina have been doing the work of 3 people when there are only 2 of them. And so they've done a tremendous job going through these applications and working together with the rest of us to make it understandable, because sometimes they're not so easy to parse out. So give them their kudos, their flowers for that. And with that, let me share my screen.
And yeah, thanks for saying that, Matt. There was an email today where Katrina sent out to all of you. Hopefully you got the chance to see it, but yeah, a couple attachments were to help all of us see. You know, I have it up in front of me right now. So if you have that opportunity or need to, it makes it even more clear.
Okay, can everybody see the slides here?
Yes.
Great. Okay, before we get into the applications, I did want to give some updates as to what's going on with some of the systems that we partner with. There's been a little bit of a change in the regionalization arrangements. This happened because, good news, Wasatch has joined the IDC family. And so with them coming on board, it made sense to reconfigure the what was previously called the outer county group. So previously, Joab Millard and Sam Pete were all part of a regionalization project, and they were managed with help from management through Utah County Public Defender's Office. With the addition of Wasatch, we decided it would make more sense to swap out Wasatch County in that group for San Pete. The reason for that is because Wasatch is part of the 4th District. So now we have Joab Millard and Wasatch, along with Utah County, all working together. And now San Pete is together with Sevier and Wayne. Again, they are now all in the same district as well. And so it helps when trying to coordinate different attorneys and when they're going to be where and in front of which judge, if you're all talking about the same district there. And everybody, I will say the counties and the managing defenders, everybody was on board with this change. It went very smooth. And so we're happy that that's in place now. Then in Carbon County, Commissioner Hope's home county, there is an interesting, and I'm really excited about this project that's starting. They have regionalized their municipal courts, their city courts under Carbon County now. I think you all know that we've had trouble over the years trying to engage cities with our grant programs, and a lot of that has to do with the economies of scale. It's hard to justify the administrative cost that goes into dealing with a grant if you're just dealing with a small city and might be just dealing with a couple $1,000s in grants going out to them. But with this project, Price, Helper, Wellington, and East Carbon are all pooling resources, and they're all going to be managed by the managing defender there in Carbon County. And so I think it's something that we're going to really keep an eye on and see how it works. And it's something that we hope that can be used as a model for other cities throughout the state. In fact, we got a call recently from Cedar City wondering if they could do something similar in Iron County. So I put their managing defender in touch with the managing defender there in Carbon, and hopefully they can share some ideas. We can't replicate this. And then finally, this should be common knowledge by now, but Cache and Box Elder have regionalized as well. Mike McGinnis, the managing defender there, has done some great work in persuading Box Elder to increase their funding for indigent defense. And so they've increased their compensation for their defenders there, and that's helped him to keep those contracts filled and improve that system. Speaking of spending increases, we have seen a pretty great year as far as the counties increasing their commitment to indigent defense. We've seen 13 counties increase their system-side spending, and most of that is to increase the compensation for either their attorneys if they have offices there, or for their contracts. Salt Lake County has done a tremendous job in bringing their defenders up to parity and making sure that they're not being left behind increases that are happening for prosecutors in the AG's office. And I think that this too is really a testament to the work that our managing defenders are doing, advocating on a local level and making clear to their county commissioners that this is something that needs to be paid attention to. And if they want to retain and attract quality attorneys to do the work, they need to make sure that they're being compensated accordingly. Speaking of compensation, a lot of the requests that we received this year was for compensation increases. However, as we've discussed previously, we are working on a statewide study to understand better how to do that in an equitable manner and make sure that we're not that we're spending our funding wisely as far as compensation goes. We're spending the summer working on that. At our last meeting, I discussed the need to hire a consultant to help with that. Leslie's been spearheading that project and has a lot of good information, but it is a lot to get your arms around. We've lucked out though, because we were approached by a graduate student who's working on her MPA looking for a project, and she's interested in criminal justice issues. And so we said, we've got a project that you can help with. And so she is working with Leslie to work on that as part of her degree. And so we're excited, and we're going to work to include some people from the legislature too, to work on that together with us and present that to the legislature to try to increase some funding for compensation with the next round of appropriations. Additionally, I don't know if anybody is on the public defense news email that's put out by, I believe it's put out by the ABA, but there was a federal bill that was just announced called the Equal Defense Act that looks to address the lack of funding throughout the nation for public defense, specifically for compensation. They're going to be looking at parity issues. If this gets passed, it would be a $250 million grant program to go to the states to help fund public defense salaries. Now, I'm not putting all my eggs in the congressional basket, which is why we're working so hard on our study to present to the legislature. But that is something, that we may want to keep an eye on and try to rally our congressional representatives to support this act as it gets introduced. So turning to the applications, just a quick reminder about the process that we went through to get these prepared. We had our system needs evaluation, and then so that's where Leslie collected data for each system so that she had numbers and could compare those to how they are staffed and make recommendations where the numbers suggest that the system could use additional help, additional attorney help. After that was done, we had individual collaborative meetings with the managing defenders and with county administrators and county commissioners who were interested, and discussed the results of those system needs evaluations, discussed our recommendations, but then also gathered feedback from the systems too, to see what their perception was as far as how things were going, what they needed help with, and how we could collaborate. And so that was a great conversation to have. I know that some of you sat in on these meetings as well, and I hope that was a good experience for you all. So we've received the applications and we've processed those, and we ranked those according to the tiers that we have established for this year that we voted on back in fall to winter of last year. So reminder, tier 1, top priority is for renewals of existing grant funding. Tier 2 is for new managing defender or administrative positions that will result in increased management capacity for those managing defenders. Tier 3 is for new attorney funding based on staff recommendations, and those are based on the data that Leslie collects. Tier 4 are other capacity increases. So those are non-attorney funding requests. Those can be for social workers, investigators, paralegals, and the like. And then tier 5 is all other requests. So those are things that counties have requested that weren't something that we recommended or discussed in our collaborative meeting. And based on those tiers, this is the breakdown of what those requests were. You can see there's a pretty significant tier 5 amount there. That is mostly for compensation request increases. And as I mentioned, we are working on having a plan in place to be able to address those compensation requests. We don't anticipate being able to fulfill those this year, but we will be going to the legislature this coming session and presenting that and asking for some compensation funding. Any questions before I move on from here?
Yeah, Matt, I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, this is going to come up because I've had a number of discussions with our county folks about the compensation piece of all of this and the raises in the compensation. And as I look at the statutes, I mean, we have some funds that are put together, and you also have lawyers that you have hired. And of course, I don't think that we're likely to get the increases. As you know, our office, because our council, in response to what the Attorney General's office did, is giving us some pay raises, which we very much appreciate. But what I have been asked by some folks in my county is, are the lawyers that work under IDC at the appellate division or the post-conviction, are they getting the benefit of the Attorney General raise at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have matched the Attorney General raises on that end. We felt that that was very necessary in order to retain those attorneys who are doing the very same work that the Attorney General's office is doing. That is, however, does not come out of this grant funding. That is a totally separate appropriation. That's our IAD funding. And so that was something that we were able to do while staying within the budget that we have appropriated for IAD.
So that's a separate funding source then?
Completely.
Looks at that. So was there, do
Sorry,
you know?
just one more thing too, and with the legislative session that we most recently had, we did get an increase for IAD, specifically for the post-conviction and for their child welfare appeals. And so we were able to use those new funds that start July 1st to be able to manage those increases. So.
No, and I appreciate that. And, you know, it does create a little bit of a problem because it does create a disparity between, you know, whether or not people are getting a fair market value. And then, of course, they would be encouraged to go to the IDC because because they're able to pay at a slightly higher rate than what the other folks are. And I know you're sort of thinking about that for the next legislative session, but it does create a bit of a disparity. And they're going to ask me about why that happened here and why grantees weren't given that. And I think you've given me enough information for me to give an adequate explanation of that. So thank you.
And please, by all means, if there's anybody in particular who has questions, I'm happy to talk to them and get into the weeds as far as that goes as well.
Yeah, you know, in counties and the state, we talk about the separate buckets, right? Different buckets of money can be used for different things. So yeah, it was a very good question and explanation. It's these are different buckets.
And this will come up too, you know, in addition to just compensation generally that we'll be asking for in the upcoming session. I know that some of the counties too are going to be facing a situation with ARPA funds coming to a close. And so we'll be incorporating those into our budget request this fall, pointing out to the legislatures that some of those federal monies that were used to fund public defender positions throughout the state are drawing to a close, and that the state needs to step up and fill that void there.
Yeah, I saw that. I know that's in Davis. I saw that in Salt Lake County. No doubt there's others, huh?
Mhm.
I'm really glad that you're planning to take that to the legislature. Good.
So as far as our available funds going forward, we did receive an additional $7,000 in one-time funding that will go into our grant award budget. So that brings our total up to the 7.380474 that you see there. And what we are recommending is that the commission fund tiers 1 through 4. So again, that's renewals, recommended attorney positions, and then recommended non-attorney positions. And that brings us pretty close to that target. That leaves an additional 8,000, just under 8.5 thousand to spend. But now we'll go through the counties in detail. And if anybody has any questions about any of those funding requests, let's discuss those as we go through each one. So here we have the Iron Beaver Cane regionalization project. They are not requesting any new additional funding this year. We did have some recommendations, but there are some challenges that they're having with persuading their commissioners to actually accept increased funds. And so we're working with that managing defender to make a presentation to her commissioners so that they can see that there is the need for additional resources there. But in the meantime, they are only asking for renewals of last year's funding. Next, we have the Box Elder Cash project. And just to explain the color coding on these, the blue That's all tier 1. Those are renewals from last year. The yellow is for tier 3. So that's attorney increases. The orange is tier 4. That's other capacity increases, social workers and the like. And then tier 5 is the pink. We didn't get much in as far as the tier 2 request goes. That'll come up a little bit later. But with Cache County and Box Elder County, as I mentioned, Mike McGinnis was able to go to Box Elder. He was able to reconfigure some of those contracts to make them more appealing. These amounts here are only the IDC grant amounts, so that this doesn't show the system.
Matt froze on my end. Are you guys?
Side
Yeah.
spending, but
Oh.
that they're spending on
Hey, Matt.
the contracts and renewals.
I'm gonna walk you back because you froze for just a little bit there. Yeah. Can you repeat what you just said?
Oh, sure, sorry. That's okay. So Mike McGinnis has taken on the task of managing Box Elder County, but he's not getting any kind of additional compensation for that. He just, that's something that we had all discussed together, and he took that charge on and is doing a fantastic job. The agreement that he worked out between the two counties is that Box Elder County would pay Cache County $90,000 in exchange for them doing this work. That money, that $90,000, would be going into the defense spending there in Cache County. As part of that request, though, they are requesting that we IDC pay for 30 of that $90,000. So that would essentially be paid to Box Elder and then go to help Cache County with their defense spending there. So it's not a supplantation issue. It's kind of all three of us collaborating together. And so that's what that line item is there. That money would then be used to help fund a new contract in Cache County. That's the serious defender contract that you see there. And that would be used to help, well, there's some mighty winds going on outside my window. Trees about to blow over. Help fund a serious defender contract. That's a new contract that other counties have been using, something similar to help take the strain off of their line attorneys, and that contract would deal with first-degree felonies, minimum mandatory type cases. And so he's hoping to use that contract to hire somebody with a lot of experience who can come in, take those cases, and so his line attorneys are not totally overwhelmed if they get a homicide or a first-degree felony sex offense. Additionally, they are requesting, and we recommended, a child welfare social worker. This is somebody who would work helping with child welfare and parental defense clients and help them navigate the reunification plans that they need to follow in order to get their kids back. And this would be a social worker who would be used both in Box Elder and Cache County. Cache County, with Utah State University there, they do have a social worker program there at the university. And so Mike's already making connections there to see if this is funded, if they can tap into the university's job board and be able to find somebody to do that work. And I think before I continue, though, now that we're on that topic, I'm going to put Adam on the spot for a moment to talk about the child welfare social worker program. There was a question, I believe Commissioner Drexel had a question that he had in his reviews about the social worker, child welfare social worker program in general, whether we have any data to show its effectiveness, and so I would like Adam to talk briefly about that before we continue.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And Michael, I saw your questions or your comments, and so I'm glad you asked, because I think it is really relevant, obviously, to this discussion, but also as we've been building more. The proposal specifically for Cache County is focused on building attorney capacity to work with clients and for better representation because of the work that the social workers do in this program. Sorry, Commissioner, do you want to say something? No, it's okay. So the fact is that in Cache County, we counted, I think, 57 child welfare cases, and they have 2 attorneys doing the work, but they share half the caseload. Essentially, they cover conflicts for each other and do that. So the ability to put a worker with them on those cases does give them a lot more reach. And what we're finding in this program is just a lot more contact with clients. Whether it's entirely effective in getting great outcomes or not, we can't demonstrate yet, but it is certainly helpful. The other part is that we are currently gathering information on what people are doing. It's primarily activity focused and gathering case characteristics as part of the pilot project we've been doing, as part of the work we've been doing with a couple of the other social workers who've been involved in this for a while. We can't show outcomes for a while because these cases, as you know, go on for some time, and we are working to identify instead what activity is being done, number of contacts that clients are able to have, and related issues that just demonstrate something to us that demonstrates there's actually some capacity increase for the attorneys, and that there is some obvious benefit for the clients as they go forward. So the other part of it too is why we continue that. There are studies from around the country and a lot of other places that are doing similar programs, and they have demonstrated over a long period of time that they do get very positive outcomes, and that what they focus on is length of time for children in custody, a percentage of kids who return home, and another piece which is really important, the feeling of engagement that the clients have in terms of how they're heard in their cases and whether they get attention that helps them to accept what's going on, getting engaged in their recovery process and the service plans. So those are showing good results. We have a survey, actually research that's been going on in Utah through the University of Utah, through the Court Improvement Project that's been underway for quite a while. I think there's going to be a report this year, and that will look at some outcomes over the last couple of years based on what was started in Utah County and in Salt Lake County with their workers. So
We also have that kind of qualitative report initial report from a few years ago as well, that kind of tracks some of the earliest use of parental social workers here.
And I appreciate that people are seeing that positive, certainly as a positive thing in their experience. I do think we need, as an office certainly, but as a commission too, ask you to keep a close eye on and ask questions about what we are doing with this, because it has grown quickly. We have a legislative directive to create a pilot program with a small amount of money from the state. So we are supplementing a lot with grants, but we do need to be able to show some positive outcomes. And as I said, other states have, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're automatically capable of doing the same or that we're organized properly. So I'd like to present information on what we're doing at a future meeting, but I appreciate it if you'd all keep asking questions about that. As Michael said, we're putting a good deal of money into this resource. So let's make sure we're doing it well.
Looks like we have a question. Thank you, Adam. And Commissioner Drexel, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
Even as I put my hand up, that's nice. Yeah, I appreciate that responsive information. That's helpful. I wonder if it makes sense. I know we have a number of funded social workers already in other systems and regions around the state. But I wonder if we ought to communicate to people when we are awarding funding for these positions that so long as this is in kind of a pilot program phase, that it's not going to be subject to our same renewal tier 1 sort of criteria. One of the concerns I have is that people will grow dependent on the funding, which is fine, except if we decide that there's a better way to pursue this than social worker, I don't want people feeling like we're yanking the rug out from under them by not treating this the same as any other renewal down the road. Because in essence, once we award a tier 4 request for social worker, it becomes a tier 1 request next year, right?
Mhm.
Even as we're studying whether or not it does make a meaningful difference in Utah to have social worker involvement in the case.
No, that's a great point. I would add, and there's, again, getting into some of the weeds here as far as appropriations go, but there is probably, of the social work, parental defense social workers that we fund, $200,000 of that is through a specific appropriation where it must go to those social workers as part of the pilot program. So that is an earmark there that where that is separate from the regular grant pool, but then we kind of treat it in the same manner when we're discussing them here with the commission.
Do we know how much we are into social worker programming generally, the special legislation and its appropriation plus other IDC funding, all told? How much are we in on this?
Yeah, so the as I mentioned, the appropriation was for 170,000 was what the appropriation was for. And then we participate in a federal reimbursement program called Title IV-E. That's where any money spent on child welfare representation, as percentage of that is reimbursed by the federal government. And so we're able to take that reimbursement and put it back into the social worker program there. As far as the total amount, I'll need to call on either Katrina or Leslie to see if they can pull that amount. But I think we currently fund about 5 social workers all told throughout the state. I believe there are 2 in Utah County, 1 in Weber, 1 in Iron. Adam, correct me if I'm wrong in here.
It's a total of 400,000. As Matt said, 220,000 of that are these ones that came out of that specific appropriation last year. The other 2 are a Utah County parental defense social worker that has been there, I think, longer than I've been at the IDC. And similarly, one that is supervised by Utah County, but works in what was Juab Millard and San Pete, but will now be Juab Millard and Wasatch. So those are the only other 2. And like I said, those have been, I mean, Margaret would be probably best able to tell us, but those have been in place for at least 4 years now, I believe.
I remember when we did that, Jojo, you was heavily responsible, I think, for securing the initial Title IV-E funding, right?
So you started the whole thing, yes.
Yes, yeah. Which is awesome.
Okay, this is helpful. I don't want to get too hung up on this. I think at some point, to Adam's point, we probably ought to define some criteria for what counts as success in terms of this being a beneficial program to continue pursuing, both for the legislative purposes outlined in the statute that created the parental representation, whatever it was, bill, and then for our own purposes, just generally. So
Yeah.
And then are there district court social workers too that we're?
Funding.
Yes.
This is the only new position that's being recommended as a tier 4 position. There was a request out of another county, but after looking at some of the different factors at play in each system, this is the one that we ended up recommending.
Sorry, one quick correction to that is Weber. Weber did ask for 3 social workers in different court areas. And when we get to them, we can talk about our recommendation there.
Leslie, since you're up, Wally has asked how many felony attorney contracts are there in Cache County?
So there are, depends how you count it always. But there are currently 6 felony defender positions. One of those though, however, is Mike McGinnis, who is now going to be the managing defender for both of these counties and currently is taking on a lot of those serious felonies also. And then one of them is he does drug and mental health court. So if you're just talking about straight district court, it's 4. According to how many hours they responded on the survey, it ends up being about 5, the equivalent of about 5 full-time attorneys. But again, that includes about 30 hours of work from Mike McGinnis a week on just his actual caseload, not on management.
So 5 full-time and then the manager.
Well,
And
sorry, the 5 full-time includes 30 hours a week from Mike McGinnis.
And then they're asking for an additional attorney. And would that attorney be full-time, only doing serious felony work?
They've funded it, so $55,000. They're asking for 55 from us and 55,000 from them, which, depending on how you do the math, would be full-time or less. If we want to get a little more in the weeds, Cache County has about 24 serious felonies a year. Altogether, if somebody worked 150 hours on those, which seems reasonable by a number of standards, that would take 3,600 hours a year. So they definitely have enough serious felony work for this to be a full-time contract. I think for the pay for those serious felonies, it's likely it'll be slightly less than a full-time contract, would be my guess.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have to step away for 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Wally.
Okay. Any other questions on Box Elder or Cache? Okay. And if somebody sees a hand go up that I don't, because I'm presenting, let me know, please.
Yeah.
Davis County, they are asking for mostly renewals. They did ask for some for the IDC to fund some of their ARPA funding, one of their ARPA funded attorneys. However, their ARPA funding is still available for another year. I believe it's expires at the end of 2024. So that is something that we're not recommending. However, we will be including all of their ARPA funded positions in our budget request going forward to the legislature this year, and hopefully we'll be able to address those and help with those next round of the grant cycle.
Yeah, and I can just share that I very much remember in budget meetings regarding the ARPA funds with our elected auditor, the finance executive, who's very, very good. That he very much emphasized that the whole entire budget committee, all 3 commissioners are on the budget committee, but so are about 3 other people. And he said, yeah, let's use it, but everyone needs to know that this money runs out, and it's going to help with caseloads, and it's going to help with the increases in the backlog, and no one disagreed that it was very much needed, but we all knew that it would be so difficult when that money runs out. So I'm glad to see that other counties have also had a similar experience, right? And that we are going to advocate and voice that. So I don't know what it means, and the rest for contingencies, I didn't quite understand what that.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to mention that. And this, I think, is a good illustration of just because something is a renewal doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to it. In previous cycles, Davis County was awarded $68,000 grant for an administrative assistant, and then 87,500 for an attorney position. And then when they filled those positions, they ended up filling them for less than the full amount of the grant. And so with the grant application, they did request the full amount of the grant. However, we were able to see that they did not use the full amount in the past. And so what we're recommending going forward on the renewal is for the actual amount rather than the previously awarded amount. So just want the commission to know that we are paying attention to those, and just because something is a renewal does not mean that we're necessarily doing a blank check on those awards.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that explanation.
Okay, and we couldn't fit this all on one page, but we have the Joab Millard Sam Pete new and improved.
You have Millard Wasatch.
Wasatch now. It's not. Yeah, I know that's going to be take some time to rearrange my head. Joab Millard Wasatch. So the 4th district outer county project. Joab is requesting a part-time parental defense contract. That's something that was borne out by the numbers, and so that's something that we are recommending. I think we mentioned earlier that they were asking for a parental defense social worker, but we're not recommending that because of the budget. We wanted to stay close as possible to that budget amount that we have for new funding, and so we came down on the side of cash for that. With Wasatch, with them joining in, we were able to look at their caseloads and see that they desperately needed some additional attorneys to do the work there. They basically had one small firm doing all the work and needed to have some more attorney hours there. And so we had recommended, and they had asked for a couple of additional attorney positions, one being more towards a full-time and one being a part-time position. Any questions on that system? Okay. Then we have the carbon regionalization project. This is interesting, and it was a little bit of a challenge to kind of get my head around because there are a lot of different moving parts here. But essentially what has happened is that the cities who are joining this regionalization project, they took their budget and they are sending that budget over to Carbon County to administer the contracts. Robert Oliver, the managing defender there, was able to take that budget amount and then rearrange the contract so that there is not, he's able to cover all those courts without an increase in funding for that. And so he's able to reapportion those. Basically what was happening in those cities who are now part of this regional project, they had one attorney who had separate contracts with each city, and that attorney had way too many cases to be able to do a adequate job defending all those individuals. And so what Robert was able to do was to split those up into separate contracts. And so he's going to put those out for bid so that it's not all on that one attorney to do all that work. Separate and apart from the regionalization project, the system needs evaluation that we did and looked at the numbers there indicated that regardless of the regionalization, the numbers in carbon justified the addition of a part-time district court contract and then a part-time juvenile court contract. The juvenile court would be for conflicts coming out of delinquency court. And so with the reallocation of those funds too, the county will be increasing the contract amounts on their end for the district court attorneys, because they're going to be handling those Class A misdemeanors that are coming out of those cities now. So instead of having that one individual handling all of those cases, it's going to be split amongst three, maybe four different attorneys handling that additional caseload in district court from the Class A misdemeanors and from the appeals out of justice court. In addition to the new attorney contracts, and actually, I think that might be an error on the third line, that justice court defender for 13.2. Is that part that was from the price pass through?
That one's correct. So in
What is-
their application originally, they had it on both. And so now it is just on price.
Got it. All right. But with the managing defender, that would be, so Robert Oliver will be managing these justice court contracts now. And so that's what that increase there. This is the only green that you'll see on our presentation. So this is an increase for increased management for Robert to handle this new justice court city regionalization project. Salt Lake. So Salt Lake County.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, Matt, going
yeah.
back to price and carbon.
Mhm.
So the manager will receive 108 plus 36.
That's right. So the 108 is, let me see if I can go back. There we go. That's what we pay for the managing defender. And he does have a caseload in addition to the managing defender duty. So he has a district court caseload. He manages the carbon contract. So that's where that 108 comes from. And then he'll get an additional 36 to manage the justice court contracts.
Okay. Well, I certainly think I don't have a good handle on what's fair compensation, but I'm glad to hear him exercising some managerial discretion and leadership and saying one attorney can't handle all of these different cities and the people aren't being well represented. And so I'm going to divide that up and have different attorneys so that it's not overwhelming for one lawyer. I'm happy to hear that.
Well, and I know that our newest commissioner, Commissioner Hopes, was part of that conversation when we were going through the numbers and taking a look at that. And that was definitely one of the conditions of entering into this agreement, was that there needed to be some changes in those contracts in order for it to be something that would have the IDC behind it as well. So
it really didn't make sense to regionalize between Carbon County and Price City if the other cities weren't involved, because of the one attorney that was in both the Carbon County and the Price City contracts was also representing the other cities. So in order to make it all work, we had to bring all of the cities in.
Yeah.
And I think the other benefit, at least for the cities, maybe, I don't know how you guys see this, but the other benefit was that it would provide better conflict counsel, because you can pull from a larger pool for conflicts, especially for the smaller cities.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, I just am fascinated, Matt, just because I've heard, some of our commissioners, Casey, have been on since the beginning of the Utah Office of Indigent Defense. There's some who have the institutional knowledge of this whole entire effort since, 2015, 2016. But I'm not one of those. And I just know that there's been a lot of discussion that I have heard about how we can help cities improve their defense. And so that's fascinating to me that this is happening in Carbon County.
Yeah, most cities have been very slow to be willing to come into the program. So it's encouraging down there.
Yeah. Salt Lake County, their increase requests were primarily for compensation increases. I think we mentioned that previously. There was a request for some help with some new software. I hear it's amazing. I haven't looked at it itself, but it's to help with the exchange of discovery back and forth between the DA's office and the public defender's office. That would be a tier 5 request. I think if that's still a need come one-time funding season, I think that would be a great request for that time. Locken and Putnam, they handle the parental defense contracts for Salt Lake County. They had a request for basically for the IDC to pay for 2 other administrative staff. However, that didn't include in exchange any kind of plan on their part to hire additional staff with the extra funding that they would have. So that's not something that we recommend at this point. Any questions or comments on Salt Lake County?
Matt, one question I had as to the Locken Associate Director, are they looking at that as hiring an additional lawyer who will also fulfill some management responsibilities, or are they looking at that as purely an administrative?
It would be the same person who's currently doing it, so it wasn't. Yeah. Yep.
Who's fantastic, by the way.
Yeah. All right, our next regional project is going to be the Sevier, Wayne, and Sanpete County now. Sevier, we have the recommendations based on the system needs evaluation. They needed some additional help in the parental defense and juvenile court. They're also starting a family recovery court in that county. That's kind of a DCFS related drug court, and so they needed some additional help to staff that, and so that's what those additional contracts would be for. And I believe they do have a new juvenile court judge in that district as well, and so there is some additional seats to be filled to be able to accommodate that increase in the calendar. And again, this is a regional project, so you'll see some of that with Sanpete being able to be used with the child welfare being used in Sevier County as well. They did ask for some very modest compensation increases, but again, we're not recommending any changes until we get our compensation study completed this summer. Tooele is not asking for any increases aside. They did request a social worker, and this is something that we've had ongoing discussions with Tooele about. However, we do have some reservations about whether they have the capacity to be able to really effectively use a social worker in that system. I think that as we have more social workers developed in neighboring counties, I mean, of course, Salt Lake County has a really robust social worker program, but we may try to do some mentoring at least with Tooele to help them understand, where to use a social worker, how to use one. But in their application, they really weren't sure what to do with one, to be pretty blunt about it, or even how much money to ask. We kind of filled in that $80,000 because that's what we fund on other systems as far as the social worker position. So that will be something that we'll keep an eye on and see if we can make that a better use of grant funds in the future. Uinta County is not asking for any contract increases. They are asking for compensation increases. Utah County with our system needs evaluation, we are recommending an additional full-time child welfare attorney. They are receiving an additional judge position there in juvenile court, and so they'll need some additional help there to staff that calendar. We're also recommending an additional half-time delinquency attorney in their application. This would be a 50-50 split, so we would be paying for half of each of these positions, and the system would be spending on the other half. You can see that there's a number of positions that we aren't recommending due to budget constraints. They mentioned an appellate attorney. With the appellate attorney, we are actively working right now with the U's College of Social Work to come up with some caseload standards for appellate attorneys. And so currently it's kind of hard for us to assess what the needs are for an appellate office or an appellate position, but that is something that we should have that study done in the not too distant future. I know Leslie's been helping them with data processing and making sure that that study is something that we can stand behind and use in the future for system needs evaluations with systems that do have their own appeals office. Washington County, they are asking for, again, like many others are asking for compensation increases. Despite what I just said about appellate attorneys and not being able to have a good handle on whether there's a need or not, with their appellate contract, it was pretty glaring. They had one contract handling appeals for about, I think it was around $40,000, and he had 15 plus appeals that he was working on, which is just not sustainable. And so they were asking to, they're going to be increasing some funds and creating a second appellate contract, and wanted us to help fund that second appellate contract for a similar amount of money. So to help alleviate the burden there, they are just, I believe 1,200 people over the threshold from being a third-class county. So they're in a second-class county, and so they're ineligible for our appeals department. They remind us this quite frequently, that they're just over the line there. But that's what the statute says, and so we're not able to take their appeals. So we are recommending that we fund an additional part-time appellate contract there so that they can get some relief. They and you know that they are filing appeals, which is a good thing. They have a lot of trial work going on, and the appeals are being filed, and so I think that's a good sign of the word getting to the clients that they have that right to appeal, and hopefully they're getting some good review of the trial work that's happening there. And finally, we have Weber County. Weber County, they have started a new social worker division. They were able to use some opioid settlement money to hire a social worker to start a division there. They have previously received a IPR social worker, a parental defense social worker. They asked for several new social worker positions. We felt that funding one additional social worker would be appropriate given the size of the caseload there, and having that managerial capacity there to be able to direct a new social worker as part of that system. So we're recommending one increase there, but then due to budget constraints, that's the only one that we recommended at this time. So that concludes our rundown of the requests and our recommendations for this year.
I have
Oh.
one, oh, sorry, there's Grant,
Sorry,
but I have one quick typo.
Okay, which
In severe, I double entered that parent recovery court one, so it makes it look like the request, if they have 2 times 42,000 and it is only 1 times 42,000
back in severe?
in severe.
Okay. Okay. Does that affect, was that on the chart, or does that affect the total number of?
It does. So that means we are now underspending by 50,000
50,000.
approximately.
Okay. One final note here with Grand County. So Grand is back. They applied. They wanted to bring in, they were working to bring San Juan in as a regionalization project. They weren't able to work out any kind of agreement in time for the grant application. So they were asking for a managing defender position. However, currently that person would only be managing 2 people there in Grand. As part of our managing defender policies, there would need to be at least 3 attorney contracts in order for us to fund a managing defender to do that. That is something, again, I spoke actually with the county administrator earlier today. They do have the budget to be able to fund it on their own. So I don't think that this will be too much of a hardship for them not to receive this, because we're not recommending funding for that managing defender. But by them having applied and collaborating with us as far as sharing data and reporting to us, they'll be eligible for the rural mileage reimbursement program. They'll be eligible for defense resources from the IDC as well. So they will be getting some benefit despite not having a direct grant this cycle. They're going to continue working with San Juan to see if they can come to an agreement, and maybe we can do an amended request down the line, but as of right now, that's not ready for prime time, as I say. So with that amendment, so Leslie, what is the total amount that we're at here?
It is now $50,478.
Underspent?
Underspent.
So this is unusual. We have a little left in the bank, not a whole lot, but I'm sure that's something that I think with all of the requests, that would be a little bit difficult to decide what to do with on the fly. That's something that we could use with our any amendments coming forward in the future, or we could use it with one-time funding at the beginning of the calendar year. But we're definitely open to suggestions. But we would ask the commission to, at this time, approve the recommendations that we've laid out for you.
Thank you, Matt, and everyone for that great presentation, taking a lot of data and a lot of work and making it understandable for us. I mean, yeah, maybe if we're underspent by that, but like what I love is how it worked out, because you can't plan these things, but how clean it is with the tier 1 to tier 4 to be able to fund, all of that and have it fit in the budget is kind of cool, huh?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, yes.
Counties have not been using the 3rd through 6th class counties have not been using our defense resources funding very much this year. And that's something that we would like to encourage them to do, so that $50,000 can be also added to the pool for defense resources and mileage.
Oh. Interesting. Yeah, wow. If they're not utilizing that, it seems like that could be so helpful, huh? Defense resources to those counties.
I just had a question about the 50,000 something that's not yet been allocated. What is our deadline to expend that? Is that's not July 1st, is it?
No, that would be available
Okay.
beginning July 1st is when we would be able to spend it.
Just
Distribute
making,
it.
okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Zimmerman,
Yeah, do you want a motion?
if we're ready for one, I'm ready whenever you are.
I'd make a motion, we approve the budget as adjusted.
I would second the motion.
Sorry, I had to unmute. So a motion by Judge Zimmerman and a second by Wally. Any further discussion or by anybody?
Also, I would just say I support the idea of keeping $50,000 in the piggy bank to wait and see if special needs arise.
Okay.
And I second what Wally just said. I think I'm actually pleased that we have that available because something's gonna come up, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how do we vote where we have to abstain from counties, like what Amber put in the chat?
Yeah, let's see, Amber. So Amber said in the chat, we do need some people to abstain from their respective counties. And yeah, if we were voting on individual counties allocations, yeah, I definitely remembered that. But if we're just voting on the entire thing, we still have, Amber, do we still have the right numbers of people? And just assuming everyone's abstaining from their own county? That makes sense?
Yeah, we have, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
8.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 commissioners present right now. So we have plenty. And I think what we've done in the past is I believe we'll need to do just like a individual roll call. But then if a commissioner has a conflict with any particular county, they can just vote and abstain from that particular county. But we should have enough people to have a quorum on that regardless.
Okay, on every one of the different regions and counties. Okay. So the motion was for the whole thing, not for individual counties, right? And so does that work in your minds, Matt and Amber? I think it does. Yeah. Yeah, assuming that, of course, yeah, we would be abstaining from our own county where we're working. Okay. All right, well, awesome. So there is a motion, a second. If there are no other, no further discussion to the motion, then let's go ahead and take a roll call vote. I think I can see everybody pretty good here. So I will be an aye. And then Mary.
Aye. And I have no abstentions necessary.
Oh, right. Okay, good. Michael Zimmerman.
No, yes, and no abstentions.
Very good. I guess I should have said I abstain from Davis County. Okay, Commissioner Hopes.
Aye, and I abstain from Carbon County.
Thank you. Michael Drexel.
Aye, no abstentions.
Okay. Wally.
Aye, Captain, and I have no reason to abstain from any county.
Excellent. Yeah, it's always interesting to see who has to say ayes, who's not used to saying ayes. We get used to that in the counties. Okay, great. Thank you. And let's see, Margaret.
I abstain on Utah County. I don't think it's necessary on Wasatch, Juab, and Millard, but if someone sees it differently, I would abstain on those counties as well.
Very good. Thank you. Pam?
I will abstain from Salt Lake County and Washington County.
Very good. And then Rich?
Aye, and I abstain from Salt Lake and Weber County.
Right. Okay. I think that is everyone. Amber, did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Terrific. Wow. That is a ton of work, everyone. Thank you. Matt,
Yeah.
does that conclude what we needed to vote on there? But then there's the one other item.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice not to be dreaming in spreadsheets anymore. I can, speaking for myself, I know Amber, or I mean, Leslie and Katrina probably feel the same way.
Totally. Yeah, I know. Here's what Matt told me. He said, I've been swimming in this data for weeks. So I get it. Then it's, well, you know it inside and out, but it surely benefits all of us. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, great work. Step 2 for honestly making it really very understandable is so helpful. Okay, good. So Matt, let me know that there is one item that we need in a very brief little closed session before we go to any other business and public comment. So should we do that, Matt, now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So let's see. Do you have the code that I need to?
Yeah, it would be under 544205 C. So that would be a strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
Okay, very good. I will move that we go to a closed session due to statute Utah Code 54-4-205C. And I need a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Hopes. Okay, all in favor, just say, go ahead and say aye.
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 Very good. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, so now we'll go into closed. And when you're ready, Mike, Matt, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to update the commission on some pending litigation. We received our appellate division. I'll start, let me back up a little bit there, puts out a regular newsletter. Now, this is different from the newsletter that the IDC puts out every month that talks about job postings and spotlights different attorneys doing the work. This newsletter that our appellate division puts out is a lot more substantive. It has case law summaries. It may have strategy tips or interpreting new cases that could be beneficial for practitioners throughout the state. And this is put out on a subscription basis. You need to certify that you are a defense attorney when you are signing up for this newsletter. And newsletter is actually probably a poor choice of a title. I think we'll be renaming it so it better reflects the content of those publications. An attorney from the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office got his hands on one of these newsletters and saw that it had some valuable information, he thought, as far as what's going on in the minds of defense attorneys throughout the state, and wanted more of those. And so he filed a GRAMA request to get all of those training newsletters. We decided to deny that request based on the fact that those are discussing litigation strategies and tactics. And so the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office has appealed that to district court. So that's now in district court. We are normally we'd be represented by the AG's office, but as you can imagine, there's some little bit of a conflict in that regard because the AG's office is a a prosecutorial agency in and of itself. And so having an agency that handles prosecution, defending or representing us on this case involving a prosecution entity trying to get defense strategies is problematic. And the AG's office actually recognized that and said there's a conflict here. You'll need to secure other counsel. We do have a civil attorney who's agreed to take the case on. He is actually the best in town when it comes to things related to grandma, and he was so displeased with the whole notion of the DA's office trying to do this, that he is going to do it at a rate that is very similar to what the AG's office would be billing us for their hours. And so that's where we're at. We're at the very beginning of this this district court case, but I wanted to give the commission an update as to what's going on. And we will definitely keep you posted as things progress. And I'm happy to respond to any questions that anybody might have.
Do you mind sharing the name of the deputy district attorney?
You might have heard of him. His name's William Carlson. I don't know if you've crossed paths with him. Yeah.
Wow, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Matt, I guess I have a question in a broader sense. I mean, I sort of changed my kind of view on this after a discussion with Pam yesterday, but I mean, I'm less concerned, I think, about newsletters and more concerned about where that might lead in terms of disclosures. And what are you foreseeing? I mean, the newsletter, I suppose, goes out to everybody, and it has what you might argue is generic information along with, strategies and case summaries and things like that. And on their face, if you first look at it, it's probably less concerning, but in a broader sense, I'm sort of wondering what are you anticipating? Because I think this is going to be a pretty highly disputed event in terms of whether a judge will look at this and say, well, a newsletter is just a newsletter. It's just information. It's generic information that goes out to everybody. But what do you see in a broader sense as far as where this may go, given that we are a state agency?
Right. And that is the major concern. I mean, you really nailed it on the head, because we do our regular CLEs, and a lot of those involve presenters who are definitely not wanting to present certain information, proprietary information to the prosecution, right? We might have an expert who, in fact, we had not too long ago, we had the expert presenting on dog sniff cases. And in fact, she insisted that the presentation not be recorded because she did not want it to be a widely distributed event. And so that is the concern, is that this is the camel getting its nose under the tent. And then before you know it, all kinds of trainings and in-person training seminars, things like that IDC sponsors would be wide open for prosecution to attend. And I know that we had an earlier discussion about a joint CLE with prosecution and defense happening in Davis County, but I think it's important for the defense and the IDC to have the prerogative to have things just for defense practitioners if we're having those or sponsoring those types of events. Likewise, there's the Pam put in the chat there, we have that federal grant where we're developing the toolkits and the trainings for youth defense cases, and that's why those are not being recorded as well. So we are, as part of the consultation that we're doing with the attorney dealing with grandma. We're talking to him too about ideas as to how we can deal with this in the future in the event that this case does not come out our way. What kind of protections can we put in place to be able to shield our work product from prosecution agencies. And it may take a statutory change to the grandma statute. There are a list of entities that are protected from grandma requests, and so it may take getting us put on that list. IDC is unusual for a state agency in that it is with our appellate division. It's basically a small law firm housed within a state agency, and so that is an unusual animal. And I think if we do need to get a statutory change to protect them and their work product, then that may be the way that we need to go.
No, it's interesting, Matt, because I'm a 501c3. They're not going to get any of my stuff because I'm not a grandma entity. So we can do as much of that as we choose to do, and it's really not discoverable. And I think our office 60 years ago was set up precisely for that reason. In the way that it was, is because of those concerns. I just find it an interesting. I mean, I don't know about the newsletters. I mean, how much are they going to get really by a newsletter? Probably not a lot. I do agree with you though. It's other things that they may be entitled to have as a result of getting that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in too? I mean, I think one of the things too that, because like what you're talking about, Matt, and I know they're asking for the newsletters right now, but this came up yesterday. I told you Will brought it up with Rich and I at the Sentencing Commission, and Rich and I kind of stared at him and we're like, why do you want it? And but I do think it's a problem because, like, as we've talked before about, like, if there's a motions database, do you make sure it's like password protected? And also, like those toolkits that we've created as part of the juvenile training stuff, that all came from a federal grant. And part of the federal grant requirement is that it's only accessible to defense offices. Like, we aren't allowed to have prosecutors in the trainings. And we had to jump through a lot of hoops with the Utah State Bar to explain to them, because, the Utah State Bar doesn't want you to do CLEs for just one side or the other. And Katrina knows we had to jump through a lot of hoops with the bar to explain to them that, like, we cannot use this funding to provide training to prosecutors. And so, I think like that, like what you're saying is like, and we kind of said that to Will, like, why do you want it? But it's setting up the precedence of that's the problem for it. So anyway, that's just.
Well, and not going too far in the weeds, but one of the arguments that our attorney is planning on making is that our organic statute, the statute that created IDC and IAD, one of the mandates there is for IAD to provide training to public defenders throughout the state, and that organic statute supersedes grandma. So we'll see how that argument plays out, but that's one of the things that we'll be raising with the court.
Yeah, I'm glad we have such a great number of commissioners here to kind of hear this, and thanks, Matt, for thinking of bringing it up for us. Speaking of that, when it's part of a closed session, you'll have to deal with that, right, Amber?
Yeah, I'll crop it.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Yeah, no, good. Super interesting and concerning in my mind, for sure.
You want a motion to go into regular session?
That'd be great.
I move we return to public session.
All right, and someone want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I heard Wally's voice. Okay, very good. So now we're back, and we didn't take any action in the closed session. Thanks, everyone. So I don't know that we have any other people. Oh, Michael Zimmerman, thank you. You need to go. I don't see any people who've joined in to make any public comment, so we won't need that. And then as far as our next meeting, Amber, when is that? I feel like it's a little while away, right?
Let me pull up my calendar really quick. So if it's in July, it is the 20th.
Okay. And just so Commissioner Hopes notices, or knows, there is typically a pattern. So it's a certain Thursday of the week when we hold a meeting, right? Like the third
Thursday.
Thursday. A lot of times it's only an hour. So you got in just in time for like the whole biggest deal of the whole year. So there you go. But I mean, it used to take 2 hours plus. So honestly, there's major efficiencies that I've seen. So, but honestly, a great opportunity to learn a lot also when you come in with the grant, time to work on those grants.
Do we have a meeting scheduled in August for the third Thursday or not?
They haven't been set up yet, but yes, and that would be the 17th. I could send those out today.
And the other thing is, I think since this office has over the years just gets stronger and stronger, in my opinion, if they don't have enough business really, then and if it's not urgent or timely that they need to gather us, then they'll skip a month too. So that helps you too, Casey. Like they go on my calendar for, I don't know, Amber, you probably put them on for most of the whole year, right? And then we adjust as needed through the year. Yeah. So, okay. Well, I'm just, again, so grateful for all of you. Great staff, great commissioners to work with. Thank you so much for your attendance today. And I mean, we've had thunderstorms come and go with major winds and everything during this 90 minutes together. So hopefully the event we have outside in Davis County at 5 o'clock will maybe hold. We'll see. But can't complain when you're getting moisture, right?
Casey, I don't want you to think that this is the norm. This isn't the way it normally is. We usually are like biting one another, punching, kicking. There's usually a lot of fighting, a lot of brawling.
Well, that's good because that's what I'm used to. So we can get back to that.
Enough of this kumbaya.
Well, there's a lot of really smart and experienced people in this group, and I personally love it when they like challenge each other, which occasionally does happen, but it's because of everybody's minds and where they're coming from, and that's amazing, so amazing. All right, well, if that's it, let's see, I need a motion to adjourn. I think Brian would make us do that.
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Wally, thank you. I don't even know.
Second
from Mary. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Hey, Richie, I'm gonna call you right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.